This is Second Act Sessions with Stephanie Carmody, a podcast celebrating second acts in life about embracing change, questioning the status quo, and having conversations that really matter. If I've learned anything, it's that your second act is yours to define. No matter what chapter you're in, your second act can be the most powerful yet. Welcome to Second Act Sessions. Welcome back, everyone. Today's guest is Laura Richards, and I'm actually personally very excited to speak with her today because this is a topic that is something I've been dealing with for the past 15 and a half plus years. Laura is a narcissistic abuse recovery expert, podcaster, author, and speaker, and I'm just so thankful to have you on today. So, Laura, thank you so much and welcome.
I'm so excited to be here and talk to you and warn everybody about the narcissists.
I know. So in this podcast, I mean, obviously I've done several episodes now, and I think a lot of my viewers know that I am a narcissistic abuse survivor as well, from my ex. I'm not like bashing him. This is not about that, but I think this is really, for me, more about educating other women who are either in it, don't know they're in it, or surviving it, or even like women who are dating right now. I think for me, I didn't identify or even pay attention to red flags. Again, this is years ago. I don't think people in my generation were even talking about red flags as much, right?
No, we can totally get into that because we were not taught correctly.
No, we were really so not, which is why now I say everything to my nieces who are 5 and 7. Yeah. I'm like, listen, girls, if this guy is ever mean to you, don't accept it. I mean, they probably think I'm crazy.
I know.
But I'm just so protective because I wish I had someone like that in my life who was looking out for me. Right. My parents are busy raising children. That generation isn't aware of certain things that I think we are dealing with, obviously. Yeah. So before we get into your story, which is amazing, I think what I would love to do is really let's identify and define what is a narcissist. How does that differ from just like a mean person, right? Or a bad, mean boyfriend or husband? Because I do think there is a distinction. Yeah. But with that caveat, I think everyone today is calling everyone a narcissist. Yes. Like anywhere you look online, it's like, oh, narcissist. And I'm like, yeah, okay, I understand that, but that doesn't mean they're a narcissist. So if you wouldn't mind, in your, best knowledge, explain what a narcissist is, and then even maybe how that differs from just like a regular, just mean person who isn't nice and kind, right?
Right. So, the definition is I'm not even going to be like boring, give you like the clinical definition, but, it's someone who has this lack of empathy, okay, and a high need for control. Plus, you're going to find that they really have a high need for this admiration all the time. Okay. They could be treating you like garbage. And then why aren't you like grateful for whatever they're giving you? And so it's hard to just pinpoint it that way because that does sound like a mean person. But the difference is going to be that, if you have someone who's mean or whatever their issue is, you might be able to have a discussion because you're maybe in a relationship, regardless of it's a friendship or a romantic relationship, that you want to try and work things out, and they're willing to work things out. So a narcissist is never going to do that. And it's so funny, all these years going through therapy and hearing, don't ever use the words always and never, but narcissists are pretty consistent. And so I use the words always and never because, it's like 99.9% of the time, this is what they do. So that's what we're going to find is that bottom line, it's lack of empathy and a high need for control.
Yes, exactly. And then I know within the term narcissist, there's different types of narcissists. So, and I think a lot of them have similar traits, but some are like worse than others. So I don't know how much you want to get into that, but I think for me and dealing with it is that they just don't even have any realization that that's how they're even treating someone. It's almost as if they aren't aware. I mean,
really?
Do you think
you want to talk
aware?
About that?
Oh, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it.
Sure, I can give it to you. I can give it to you in 5 seconds. Do you know how? Do you know how I know they're aware? Because they don't abuse everybody. They only abuse the target. And so, because especially with mine, I had a covert narcissist. Okay, there are a few different ones, and a lot of them overlap. And it's only for us to understand their behavior if we ever want to be in a relationship with them or how to deal with them. I mean, I always say just run for your life. That's how I want to deal with them for the rest of my life. But sometimes you can't avoid that. But, it's this whole thing of with a covert narcissist, they're one way at home, which is their true self usually. That's when the mask comes off. And then out in public is so that's how you know. And actually, some self-aware narcissists on the internet do say, yes, they very much know what they're doing because they don't abuse everybody. I used to think, well, maybe they just don't know. And that's kind of the way we were maybe societalized to believe, that we can fix them. No, that's not our job.
No, it's not our job to fix anyone. And I think for me, with any relationship, not even just my ex, but I think I was always like, oh, but I see the good in them and they're going to be good one day. And I just hope and pray and wish.
Yeah.
And that day never comes, obviously. But
Right.
I think a lot of us do that. You know what I mean?
We do. And it is part of, we've been societalized, we've been taught wrong in fairy tales. And, that then you also hear things like, oh, people give up on their marriage and things like that. But, when people show you who they truly are, you have to believe them. You have to believe them. And it doesn't mean, well, I believe the first time they even touch you. Okay. Because like with me, he never hit me, but he sure hit around me. Okay, so just remember that. Like they might not hit you, but man, they want to. So when they show you their true colors, don't think, well, this could get better. If they have a full functioning brain, they know exactly what they're doing, and it's not going to get better. They're just going to, really drag you down and minimize you until you give in to whatever they're doing in hopes that, they'll get better, but they don't.
Right. But they don't. And that's actually something I've read multiple times in my healing is that once a narcissist, typically always a narcissist. Like
Yeah.
they can't really heal or change. I mean, certainly not by themselves. Maybe the active hand of God can certainly intervene one day. But like you would agree that they don't really ever, they're always going to be a narcissist, right?
Yeah, and that's what I've heard too. And so there are some self-aware narcissists who are in therapy and they're dealing with their stuff, but yes, they're still a narcissist. They always still have to deal with it, and it is a mental disorder, but that doesn't this was so me, but that doesn't excuse the behavior. You know what I mean? It's like it doesn't excuse the behavior. I spent so many years going like, well, this is why he does it. Okay, but now I know it's like, oh, this is why he does it. Well, I don't give two shits and I'm leaving. I hope I can cuss on this show
Yeah,
because
that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I want you to be comfortable. Trust me, this is an important topic. I think, like I said, it's like,
and so we think we can change them or they're going to change or whatever if we just explain it a little bit more. I always say if I just have my PowerPoint presentation available for them, they will see this is how to treat a human being. But they know how because they go out of the house and they treat people really nice out there.
oh, they're the nicest, most kindest. Like when I even was telling people some of my stories that I hid, obviously, because you don't want to share certain things because it's twofold. You don't want them looking at you like you're an idiot, you have no self-respect.
Yeah.
And then also, if you're all hanging out, you don't want them hating your husband or your boyfriend or whomever, because then that makes obviously the dynamic shift, even with friendships, but also with family. So like, I didn't even share a lot with my family, my parents, because I didn't want them hating him. So you kind of, in a way, I think, at least I did, I started protecting in a way, right?
Oh, for sure.
But to hide and minimize it, not,
Yeah. I mean, and you also, for me, I was embarrassed at certain things and I would just make excuses for him when we were out. He wasn't being, he was never cruel or anything out in public. But if he was standoffish or whatever, I would just say, oh, well, he had a hard day at work or, whatever the excuse was. It's just part of the trauma bonding that happens with the breadcrumbs we're fed, the good and the bad, the good and the bad. And so we're chemically attached to them. And so we make excuses because we think we can fix them or they'll change or whatever the problems are, so.
Well, and that sounds exactly like what I went through. So I feel like that must be so. And my girlfriend went through the exact same thing, married to a narcissist, and we went through our divorce around the same time. So hers was actually, I feel like, even more mean and manipulative than mine. Mine was more really directed at me. Hers was directed at anybody. Like he was really bad. Like obviously her, but it was awful. So I would love, if you don't mind, taking us back to your marriage, the early days. So, you said you were married, was it 35 years?
30. We were together 33 total.
33. Okay.
Yeah.
And so tell me about that, like how that looked in the beginning. Did you see the red flags but ignore them? Did you get the classic love bombing? And if you could explain that.
Yeah.
I just love to hear how that was initially, because
Yeah.
I can share mine as well, but it's just
Yeah.
fascinating to hear what
It
you went
is.
through.
Well, I didn't know he was a narcissist till after we got divorced. So,
Okay.
and that's very common. And so, looking back now as I'm doing my healing, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I could see the red flags looking back,
Yes. Of course.
but
Me too.
the red flags don't look, didn't look red then. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing too, there is that love bombing, right? There
Yeah.
is that love bombing where they're like fawning over you and treating you amazing, maybe giving you gifts or flowers or whatever the things are, and then
At the
telling
very beginning,
at
usually
the
too.
very
It's all in the
beginning,
beginning.
yeah.
They are like your knight in shining armor, and
That's
that's what they
exactly
portray.
it. And
Yes.
we've been taught that, we've been taught the fairy tale, sweeping us off our feet, all that, the Disney movies. And look, I love Disney and all that, but it's like when we have that fairy tale, we have to be careful because if there's a need or a wound inside of us that needs to be filled, we might have some issues. We might rush into a relationship faster than we need to because it looks like love, because they're saying the right things, and they ask you questions so that they can say, oh, I want that too. Oh yes, that's my dream too. And that to me was hard. That was part of the when I was unraveling everything, the betrayal I felt, because you're giving your heart to somebody, you're giving your life to somebody. I gave decades to somebody, and they were just like, just kidding. And and that to me was really hard. And so when I look back, can I see major red flags? No, they don't. Unless they're hitting you, you're not going to see major red flags, because the red flags, there's a lot of green flags, and then you'll see one red, and you'll go, that seems weird.
But you
And
brush it off. You're like,
that's
oh,
it.
it's okay.
You just go, that was weird. And
Yeah.
then you'll see a bunch more green flags. And so you dismiss it. And they do that on purpose. And then a red flag could almost sound like, oh man, she looks really good in that dress. That wouldn't really look good on you though. And you're just like, God, that was rude. But oh, you're just being too sensitive. I didn't mean anything by it. So you dismiss it because maybe you feel like you're overreacting. But those are the ways they immediately look. Green, green, green flags, and then a little bit of a devalue right away.
Yes,
They
yes.
don't wait. And so now that we're informed, or as we're starting to get more informed,
Yes.
we can see those a lot faster. Somebody ever said that to me now, I would literally stand up from the table and leave, and they would be done.
Yeah.
Like I don't.
I'm the same.
It's just, it's not okay. And that can
No.
be in friendships, things like that, to have those
Yes.
discussions. If somebody is deflecting back to you to say, you're so sensitive, that is manipulation. That's not
Yes.
somebody trying to work on your relationship.
Yes. And that's your point too, because I heard it all the time. Like we'd be getting ready to go out and I do my makeup full on with a dark smoky eye. And like I looked amazing because I know how to do my makeup. And he'd be like, oh, what do you think? He's like, well, you look great, but I like you better without all that makeup. So it's like a dig. And I think that's what happened to me. And I know you as well. And I was the same way. I just took it, and it breaks you down over the years. So I was almost a shell of my former self towards the end. And then to your point, I didn't know what I was dealing with until I went through the healing, and that word came up, and I was like, the light bulb went on. I was like, ding, ding, ding. Oh my God, this makes perfect sense though now. And like, is he been clinically diagnosed? No, but I'm telling you, when you read through what a narcissist is and you list check every single box. It reads true. Like everything that you read is what I experience and what you experience. So I understand that.
And it's so funny to me with the, excuse me for interrupting, but it's funny to me with the diagnosis, right? Because they're not going anywhere near anyone to get diagnosed for anything. And so when they talk about that the clinical numbers are actually pretty low, I'm like, right.
I wonder why. Yeah.
They're not going to therapy. Mine would, on a silver platter, would say, I don't have anything to work on. If you have a problem with me, you need to go to therapy. So what did I do? I went to therapy. Now, towards the end, and so towards the end, so many of us do. But towards the end, that's where I found my voice, and that's where I started to wake up. I still didn't know he was a narcissist. I just knew I needed out. Yes. And she was, my therapist was great in that, and just kind of making me see things and trying to understand.
But I find that interesting. Did your therapist ever say to you, I think he's a narcissist?
Never.
And why? Is that because she didn't really know what it was? Or do you think she was holding back?
Yeah, I think in a way she was probably holding back. And also I think maybe they don't even use that word unless they're diagnosing them themselves. So maybe she didn't feel comfortable. Like I feel like maybe, but who knows? Because she wasn't seeing him. It was only me and talking about it. And so she really had me focus on me. And that's what I do with my coaching as well, is like, we don't worry about them anymore. We worry about ourselves.
Absolutely.
And what that looks like, especially if many of us are the same. Maybe we're parentified daughters. We were scapegoats in our family. Lots of things. Okay. There's a lot of us have the same story or similar stories about our childhood, and that we don't blame for abuse, but we start to understand, how did we get here? Yeah, we got here this way because this is what we saw growing up.
Well, and I'd love to hear your story or how your background, because for me, I came from a loving family, right? Parents are still married to this day, but again, it's a different generation. There wasn't a lot of, I was a very sensitive child, right? Like, and I probably needed a different type of parenting. I probably needed someone who's, more, my parents didn't hug, and you know what I'm saying? It's just that generation doesn't do that. They don't talk about their emotions, which is fine. But for me, I was bullied my whole life by women, girlfriends, women. And so boyfriends, I had boyfriends that were some good, but most of them not great, who bullied. And so what did I do? I married a bully. Like, it makes sense because that's what's familiar. That's what you know. And so I don't know if that was your similar situation or if it was more you saw it in your parents and the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. I mean, my parents were born in the 30s, and so it's like nobody was going to therapy.
No,
we have family trauma as well that we didn't deal with. Like, we had a major family event that we didn't talk about. And it just was like, okay. And listen, I think back and I'm like, my poor parents, they didn't know what to do with that information that they got for this trauma. And so they just hoped and white knuckled it that everybody was okay. Yeah. Well, everybody is not okay, And so what I learned was I felt very similar to what you're saying. I felt like I needed maybe a different kind of love. Yeah. It was very much like can you just be quiet? We're trying to deal with this kind of thing. So it's not a surprise that I started a podcast because nobody ever listened to me.
I'm the same. I have the gift of gab. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to mention it all because I just need to talk about it. No one gave me enough attention. So it's so funny.
I mean, it's sadly true, but I mean, real life healing happening here, and it's so true. Time. But yes, exactly. But it's okay. And we're allowed to figure that out. I did figure it out like halfway through my podcast one day. I was like, wait a second.
No, it's so true. Like, as I'm interviewing guests such as yourself, I'm even like, oh my God, I'm learning things as I go along, which is great, Yes. And like, even one expert I had on, he's like, every person who's alive comes from trauma, some more than worse, whatever. Like, everyone has traumatic childhoods. It doesn't matter. Even if you feel your childhood was idyllic, I guarantee you, he said, there's some form of trauma there. So
it's so true.
None of us are going to escape it. We're all going to have trials and tribulations. No. I think it's a matter of what you do with it, how you overcome it, right? And move on from it.
And listen, we all went through the pandemic together. No one has ever gone through a worldwide pandemic before. You're right. So congratulations, you guys were given a trauma. So, and while you think, oh, well, it's 2025, who cares? We should care because we had to deal with that. I don't know how you felt, but we had to deal with that, like confusion and everything else, right? There was like fear, but not fear. And like, it was crazy. Awful. So it's those types of things that you think, oh, those aren't a big deal. But then you start to see patterns in your life and how you're feeling about things. And so while I look back, it really does. And so while I look back on my childhood and go, there wasn't, for me, I didn't have anything in particular, but as a family, we had a trauma that happened. And it's like,
it impacted you.
It impacted. And so it's funny that you said about when you're interviewing people or whatever, is that I usually ask them, well, so how was your childhood? About 10 minutes. And they tell me it was idyllic or great. And I'm listening to them for about 5 minutes and I'm like, are you listening?
Do you hear what you just said?
Do you hear what you just said?
I know, we all have something.
And this is the thing, is that we have learned to cope with it. And
Yeah.
so because we've been in survival mode.
We
And
have.
so because we've learned to cope with it, it does, oh no, it's not a big deal. It's not as bad as so and so. It's
We
still
shove it down almost
it's
too.
still affecting us. Yes. And so you think
Yes.
about, so I just see patterns in my
Yes.
family, drinking and drugs and stuff like that, that you say,
Yep.
okay, well, that's an issue. And that's something that I just didn't want to do. I didn't want to
Yeah.
pass that on to my granddaughter.
Right.
Getting a divorce, a couple of my kids actually texted me and were proud of me for doing that because they knew I
Wow.
was miserable. And so
Yeah.
it's like, I just want to heal. My
Yes.
whole point of, well, after my divorce, I just wanted to heal.
Yeah.
But I
Me
was the
too.
same way. I heard something about narcissists and I was like, oh crap, that's it. And so I put
Yeah.
all the puzzle pieces together
Yeah.
and I said,
Yeah.
that's it. And so I started voraciously reading and now I'm a
Yeah.
stupid expert and I hate it that I'm an expert because I was just trying to get a divorce and now I'm an expert and this is what I do for
Well,
my life, but I
but
don't
the
care.
thing is, what made you the expert though is your marriage and
Yes.
going through it. And that's
It
what
really,
made me an expert in it, right? Obviously you're
it's,
more because this is like what you're doing now for a career, but I feel like we are experts
we
because we've
are.
lived it,
Yes.
and we now know and can share and share that story to hopefully help
Yeah.
others heal others. So if
Yes.
you wouldn't mind then, so obviously you get married,
Yeah.
you're noticing some things are off.
Yeah.
You stay married, you have how many children do you have together?
We had three kids.
3 children. Okay. And how and when did you finally say enough is enough? Are you the one who kind of I obviously initiated the divorce
Yeah.
proceedings? Okay. If you don't mind sharing
I
that.
can, yeah, I can share that because there's a couple of ways that a narcissist will discard you, and
Yes. Yep.
they either discard you or they reverse discard you. And I got the reverse discard, which I didn't even know
Oh.
what that was.
Okay,
And
I got the
so,
discard, just so you know. I got
okay,
the
yes.
discard. So please explain the other one.
So the reverse discard. Okay, so it's 33 years, but you know, I spent all that time with someone who I just couldn't figure out. And
Yeah,
I felt
same.
like everything was my fault. And so
Always.
it's not like we're saying, he was beating me every day and so it was very obvious. It wasn't obvious. It was
No.
just my husband was difficult and he was mean and he
Yeah.
would flirt with women and he would not keep his word. He would do things that I would ask him to stop and he would still do it. And what could I do? I was taught basically all my life to keep the peace and be
Yep.
quiet and
Yep.
don't
Same.
ruffle the feathers, right?
Same.
Yes, so many of us have that story.
Same.
So in 2020, my mom passed away, and
I'm sorry.
if you can believe it, I was sad. Can you believe this? Because if you remember from the beginning of this episode, with a lack of empathy as the cornerstone, they're like, "Why are you still sad?" I don't know. My mom died, so I'm kind of
Well,
sad.
like, I'm sorry, don't I have a right to be sad? Hello?
No, you're bothering them with your sadness.
Of
So
course.
so it was very much I always say the last 2 years of our marriage. Some people survived the pandemic and some
Mhm.
marriages didn't, and mine didn't.
No. And I
So,
think that's okay though, because I think the ones that
oh
didn't, I
God,
think it's a
yes,
blessing. So that's
yes,
when I look back on COVID, everyone thinks I'm crazy. When I'm like, no, I think COVID actually, as bad as it was, it still
yes.
did a lot of good for so many people. Like, and
Yes, I agree with
do you
that.
agree? I mean,
I
because I know
do.
it sounds crazy, but I'm like, no, because I think what that did was at least maybe some healthy marriages, it's horrible it ended, but I think the ones that weren't, they
Yeah.
needed to end. And I look at
It
that as a blessing.
highlighted, we
Yes.
really, it really highlighted, you could see like your friends and stuff. And I don't want to get into the whole COVID thing, but
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
saw we saw the people who followed the rules and didn't follow the rules, didn't want to follow the rules. And well, I was living with a narcissist and, one by one, each of us were getting COVID. And I was the only one who didn't work out of the house.
Hmm.
And there was four of us living together, us and our two kids.
Okay.
And, okay, we're at that point, this was the beginnings, really. I
Hmm.
don't remember if it was. Anyway, it was early on. And, my ex would just every day, okay, I'm off to work because he was essential. It's like,
Hmm.
we all have COVID. Like you're not, at that point, you weren't supposed to leave the house, so, but
They don't care. They'll do
but
whatever they want when they want.
no,
They
rules
don't
do
apply to
not,
them.
yeah,
No.
rules don't apply to them. And
No.
so that's what highlighted it to me. So I was sad. And then
Hmm.
also, okay, so one trauma a year is plenty for a person. But I had my mom pass away. Then we went into the pandemic right after my mom passed away.
Ugh.
So we were all isolated and it felt, that felt traumatizing. I then decided to end my career as a speech therapist with the school district.
Okay.
So here we have number 3. So then
Wow.
after that, we had another family member pass away the following year. And if you can believe it, I was sad. So I was still sad. And I was sad on top of my mom dying. I was barely over, whatever that means, my mom passing away.
You're still grieving.
Still grieving. And it was another trigger. This was in 21. Our hospital didn't allow people in. So my poor sister-in-law had to pass away on her own in the hospital. It was horrible. Like it was a horrible time.
It was a horrible time.
All of that. It was a horrible time. So all that to say, they have no empathy. Why are you still sad? They wouldn't want you to be sad. You should just be happy.
But they can be sad all they want,
Oh, yes,
They
of
can be
course.
sad as they-
Sad or sick or anything, but don't inconvenience them. So I also at that time had an online business and he didn't support me even though he told me he did.
No,
He
they
didn't
don't ever
support me.
support you.
No, they don't support you.
No.
And just listen to what they're saying to you. Like they're talking out both sides of their mouth. We would go to therapy and he'd say, I fully support Laura, quitting her speech therapy job and she's going to do an online business. Fully support her. We'd go home and he'd be like, God, I hate your stupid whatever you're doing. It's embarrassing because I had to be on social media. So it was embarrassing.
I got the same thing.
It's amazing, isn't it? I mean, literally they're all the same. That's why we
They
can
are.
talk about it. And it's like, I can just call what's going to happen. So so with that, the last 2 years were very much discarding phase. Okay. So sweeping announcement that he wasn't going to have sex with me anymore. And if I wanted to have sex, let him know. I'm like, what? I'm like,
Do I need
yes.
to schedule it or something?
I just need to ask him. And I'm like,
God.
that's rude. I go, but that's rude. That's not how we're doing our marriage. He's like, well, I just don't feel like it. So just let me know. And so, but this has nothing to do with you. Okay. They may say it has to do with you. It doesn't. This has to do with their discarding you and devaluing you.
And so for me, I do feel 2020 was bad.
Okay.
2021 got worse. And I do feel like he was pulling away, like very distant.
Yeah.
And I think to your point, that was the discarding phase, right?
Yes. That's very much the discarding phase. They'll start to pull away. He barely talked to me. Like he would walk past me when he got home from work and I'd be like, hello? He's like, what? I'm just getting home from work. And I'm like, it was just, they make
always something.
Always something. They have to make an excuse. They'll say hello to the dog before they say hello to you. And that was really hard. So in 2022, he came into the room again one day, going out to do something without me. Always. And so he said, hey, if this is the way our life is going to be, you should tell me you're done. And then
I can't believe you're saying this.
Why did he say that?
Not those words, but for me, I had written him an email because I said, listen, I started very positively. I spelled it out like long email, pouring my heart out, but very well written and well spoken, not attacking because you can't attack a narcissist.
No, you can't attack. Well, it doesn't matter. You wrote him an email. You're attacking him.
Of course. So I'm spelling it out and I was like, listen, but if you don't want this marriage, then we need to have another discussion. So like we need to talk because I haven't spoken to you in months. So he came back 2 weeks later and he's like, I don't know how to make you happy. So I want a divorce because you're so unhappy. He was like spinning it on me. And your email was so good and so effective. Man, that was a great email. It really got to me. So I'm going to do you this. I was like, what the F are you talking about? Like,
oh my gosh.
It was crazy.
It's so that sounds a little bit like a reverse discard, but
it kind of does. You're right.
It does. Yeah. So when he said,
I got both, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. He said, you should tell me you're done. And I said, why do I have to tell you I'm done? He said, yeah, you're right. I'm just not brave enough to do it. That's not what he said. He said something a lot more crass. So read my book if you want to see what he said. But he said like, yeah, I guess I'm just not brave enough to do it. I literally started to say, I think we could work it out if, and then I heard the voice of my therapist saying, you have been so clear with him what you need and what you want. And he's either unwilling or he's unable. And
Yes.
I just heard her and I stopped mid-sentence and I couldn't waste one more breath on him.
Nope.
And I said, no, I'm done. And I stood up, I left the room. I didn't talk to him for 2 days. And then a couple days later, he's like, were you serious about us getting a divorce? Because literally he came to me to ask for a divorce. But then he's like, are you serious? And let me tell you why. Because the smear campaign has already been going on behind the
100,
scenes.
100%. And he might also already have his supply because
He
they always have
already,
to have a
of
supply
course. Oh, yes.
of the next victim.
She saved him from the awful wife. Okay.
Oh, of
Yes,
course.
he had his supply.
Of
So
course.
he's been talking behind the scenes. And look, I suspected this. And when I found out about narcissistic abuse, I suspected it and was like, I'm not sure. And then my grown kids who have a relationship with him were like, oh, yeah, mom, he's telling everybody you gave up on the marriage, you
Yeah.
left. And we just would laugh at him and go, okay, dad, whatever makes you sleep at night.
Right. That's what they do.
Because I was in therapy and everything else trying to save the marriage. You got to have two willing partners to do that.
Of course. Yes.
So it doesn't always work. So that's how he reverse discarded me. And then it's very apparent and they always do the smear campaign. It's
Always.
already been happening. So as soon as he calls, I'll just assume he called his girlfriend to let her know, yay, my
Wow.
awful wife is leaving me. Yay.
Yeah. Yay.
So now we can finally be together because, they were together before that, but
Yeah, of course.
and I'm very proud of you for not slamming him, but I don't even care. I don't care one bit. He destroyed my life for 33 years and
you have children too. That's
I
even
have
harder.
children.
I don't have children, thank
Okay,
God.
so
but
my
still.
children have given me permission to do and say whatever I want. They don't listen. They don't want to know. They said if they see me on TikTok, they flip right past me. They don't want to hear about their dad.
No, I can understand that 100%.
Yeah. But they tell me all the time. They're like, "Oh no, it's fine," whatever. And
Good.
I said something to my daughter recently. She has a daughter as well, and my granddaughter's only 8 months old. And I will talk to her about.
You will.
We don't manipulate people.
No, we do not manipulate. No, we do not.
Because she fake coughs, and so I was like, "Oh no, we're not manipulators. That's not what we do." Because she wants to get attention. She'll go, and it's like, okay, no.
We're not falling for that. We know better now. When you know better, you do better. And that means for you too, 8-month-old baby. You're going to get it. But actually, that's one question I wanted to ask you, because even for me, my ex is a lawyer. So I'm always worried about that from a legal standpoint. So like I said, I wanted to kind of understand, like, how are you so open and able to speak on it with your ex? And has he not come after you to be like defamation or anything like that?
No, and even in my book, I don't use his name. I never use his name.
Likewise.
I never use his name. If people know me, of course they know who he is. Doesn't matter.
Right.
Because this is the other thing I think about, because somebody did ask me this recently. I'm like, but if they come after me, that means that what I'm saying is true. And it's almost an admission that what I'm saying is true. So I feel like that's what stops him. Also, he's very busy with his new wife. So like, he's distracted by that. Now, when we first got divorced, I found out about his girlfriend and didn't know he was a narcissist. Didn't understand all that yet. I started to unravel it. And the first thing I did was, oh, I want to have a voice. Oh, you lied to me for this many years. Oh no, I'm all done being quiet. Because I was very I look back at some of my videos before, just on my personal social media, me being so good talking about my divorce. I was like so kind, and now I'm like, oh no, like guns blazing, I'm flipping them off. I don't care. So I just think back, it was a re-victimization to find out about her, and it really opened my eyes to what had been really going on, and really helped me move forward in my healing, because now I had a name for my pain. And that's why I talk about it, because traditional divorce therapy, which I did a divorce group, I'm like, oh, we are woefully unprepared for abuse. This is like, you want me to think about the happy times? The happy times are intertwined and tangled with abuse. So you can't go, oh, look at those happy pictures at Christmas. we already had a fight. I already broke things because I was having reactive rage. So people don't
Yeah.
understand. You can't give the same advice.
No.
And that's what I try to teach people when they're healing. I'm like, do not do traditional divorce groups.
No,
Try
because
to
you're not
find one.
traditional.
They're not. And so you're being taught things. I did 12 weeks of a divorce group, and at the end I called them and said, "You guys are woefully unprepared for abuse." I
Yeah.
mean, the 15 of us in that divorce group had all been emotionally or physically abused.
See, the
All of
thing
us.
for me, and I totally agree with that. So I
Mhm.
think divorce is hard enough. That's a death, right? So you're
Yes.
mourning a divorce, which for me was hard because it was like I lost the life I thought I was going to have, the
Yes.
financial stability,
Mhm.
all of that. But then when I learned about the narcissist, I was like, okay, then I was healing again from
Yes.
that. Because what people don't understand with a narcissist, if you aren't in that relationship, is that it is emotional abuse to its core. It is
Yeah.
truly abusive. It's
Yeah.
controlling, it's manipulation, it's the gaslighting, it's the love
Everything.
bombing initially.
Yeah.
And you at one point you literally feel like you're going crazy. So then you start
Yeah.
kind of almost second guessing yourself, like, well, what am
Mhm.
I doing wrong, and what am I bringing to the table? And it's
Yeah.
not you. It's just they have. I say when people build you up, narcissists build you down. They tear you apart so that you are a shell of your former self. You
Yes.
are very much like dependent upon them for everything. At least in
Mhm.
my case, I was
Yeah.
emotionally, physically,
Mhm.
financially, and that is just control. And it was always he could do whatever he wanted, no
Mhm.
problem. I could never say anything, but God forbid I did something wrong. I got screamed at, I got yelled at.
It's
He
so
never hit
true.
me, was never abusive.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think the hitting would have been better because I think the emotional abuse was worse, in my
It's how
opinion. Like
many
it's
Well,
awful.
all abuse is emotional because
Yeah.
no one gets punched in the face and then decides that they wanna stay just for fun. It's
Yeah.
because we've been
Conditioned.
psychologically manipulated, yes,
Mm-hmm.
and conditioned
Mm-hmm.
to that I'm sorry, and so you're trauma bonded, and the trauma bond is a full chemical reaction. Your
Yes.
brain is fully chemically attached to them, and that's why it's so hard,
Yes.
and it's so funny because I didn't know any of this stuff, but
No.
at the beginning, I was like, "I'm just gonna go no contact." It's mostly because I knew he would end up with that girl,
Mm-hmm.
that had always been an issue. I mean, there were multiple women, but anyway, the one
Yeah.
at the end was the one I was really worried about because he just kept pushing. It's like, "Here's a boundary," and he'd be like, "Nah, I don't like that boundary." Like, and this is the thing is like I was taught
Wow.
how not to ruffle feathers. So if
Yes.
he did something like you said,
Be the
um,
good wife.
I didn't do anything about it. What was I
Mm-hmm.
going to do? He groomed her in front of me. So what was I gonna
Mm-hmm.
do? I'm like, I'm not gonna
Right.
do anything. He'll get mad at me if I accuse them,
Right.
even though I'm sitting there going, what's happening over here?
Yeah.
And I never would have said anything. Now I will. And I did when I found out. I said something to both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, she's, love bombed and all that. She's manipulated. And
She's
so
his next victim, unfortunately.
yeah, she is, and so she's the perfect target, she's a
Yeah.
giver, she's this nice person, she's
Yeah.
successful. They don't go after weaklings.
I was just going to say that. That was one of my
No,
next questions. Wouldn't you
no.
agree that
Yeah,
narcissists are very smart, right? And they
yeah,
know exactly who they want, what they want, and they go after the beautiful, like, look at yourself, you're
yeah.
beautiful,
Oh,
beautiful,
thank you.
smart, intelligent,
Yes,
accomplished. It's true. And
it's true.
everyone even said to me, and this is again part of my
Yeah.
trauma, I never really dated at my level. I always kind of dated beneath me, looks
Okay.
wise or
Yeah,
whatever, because I don't think I loved myself enough, right? So I'm
exactly.
bringing my baggage, he's bringing his. And so we're both at fault to some point.
Yeah,
However, a narcissist is abuse. And so
yeah,
what they do is so much damage. And
it
like you
is.
said, he probably has another supply. They all do. And they're just as
Yeah.
great. But they're just so they don't know. They
Well,
don't know
they're
what they're
following
getting
yeah,
into.
I mean, she's following the rules, and she's
Yeah.
putting up with whatever I stopped putting up with at the
Yeah.
end,
Same.
and and they get bored. I mean, they're just like little kids,
They
that
are. Hmm.
they want what they want and
Yeah.
just don't get in their way. And so,
Yeah.
something you said made me think of I had a really hard time like having empathy for him or those kinds of things and going like, "Oh, but I know how a narcissist was built. It's usually
Hmm.
emotional neglect, usually from
Yeah.
a mother wound."
Yes.
And so I didn't know that I could hold space for both. I can
Right.
hold space for that 6-year-old little boy who
Hmm.
wanted his mommy's love. And
Yeah.
instead of, being loved, he was emotionally neglected. And he
Yes.
he, covered up his heart and was like, no one will ever hurt me ever again. and
Right.
he became who he
Yeah.
became.
Mhm.
I hold no empathy or anything for that grown-ass man who chose to
I agree.
abuse rather
Yes.
than getting help. And so we can hold space for both,
Yes.
and I didn't know we could do that. So I wanna give permission to people who are out there going, "Oh, but he's damaged and he had a bad childhood." Yep, a lot of us did. That's nice.
Yes.
And we
Exactly.
have gone to therapy or we've dealt with our crap
Yes.
and said because I
We
walk
don't take it
around
out on other people.
no, I don't walk around going, "I had a bad childhood, and I'm gonna punch you in the face." We don't
Yeah.
do that,
Yeah.
and so this
Mhm.
is the thing you have to understand is that, yes, they do that, but
Mhm.
listen, watch
Mhm.
them. They're not doing
Mhm.
it to everybody, and
No.
so what is our core wound, that we don't blame for, but there's a core wound that we
Yeah.
have that was attracted us to them and them
Yes.
to us, and so we
Mhm.
don't blame for the abuse, but we go and deal with our crap so we don't do it again.
Right, 100%. And I was also just, as you're speaking, I was just thinking about what they do as far as the abuse. And it's to your point when you say looking at a photo,
Yeah,
they ruin every holiday, every
everything.
birthday, every party.
Thing.
I can't tell you the amount of times I'd be planning something and he wanted to plan it. If it was his party, it was fine. But
Yeah.
anything that I had to do, I have gone. They would pick fights. They
Oh my
make you just so miserable. They
yeah,
either won't even show up, or if they do show up, they ruin it. They're miserable. They don't
yes,
talk to you. They're just sit in a corner and they act like
yeah,
little children. It's
they
so
really
awful, and
do.
all of that gets old, and it's so frustrating to the
It
point where you're
does
like, I'd rather just go by myself. Like, don't
it's
even
so
bother coming.
sad, and it's like it's sort of that way, he got to the point where he didn't go with me to different things,
Mm,
and it would just be like,
same.
"Well, it doesn't seem like you want me there." But it's like, "How
Mm-mm.
did we get to this place?" "No, I don't
Exactly.
want you there." "Well,
Yeah.
because you act like a stupid jerk," and so
Yeah.
you can't say any of those things,
Mm-mm.
because they're gonna turn it around on you, which is called Darvo, that they deny, they attack, and they reverse the victim and offender, and so everything if you come to them to say, "Hey,
Mm-hmm.
I don't like it that you kicked the dog,"
Mm-hmm.
pretty soon you're apologizing because you did something to make them kick the dog. So, you just
They
have to
twist it around. You can't even have towards the end, I was like, I can't even talk to you.
and
There's
it's by design. It's by design.
it's
But
so frustrating.
they
And it's
want
like
you feeling crazy, and I always
yes,
say that the
they
love
do.
of your life will not ruin your mental health like this.
No.
And
No.
so and I didn't know that, and maybe that
Mm-hmm.
was modeled to me, I look back and I think about that. That was modeled to me.
Yep.
Regardless, now I understand, and that's why I keep talking about it. I continue to talk about it
Yeah.
regardless of how popular the word is, if we throw it around, whatever, I don't care because if you can see in your
Mm-hmm.
partner that your partner is ruining your mental health or they're being
Mm-hmm.
a jerk or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
even if somebody's just being a jerk
Don't
and they're
take
not a
it.
narcissist, my
I
gosh.
know.
So for me, and we haven't gotten to this point yet completely, but I finally had to say to myself,
Mm-hmm.
do I want to live like this?
Mm-hmm.
What if I live
Mm-hmm.
another 40 years? Is
Yeah.
this I don't want to do this. And so
Mm-hmm.
that got to the point with my therapist said, I would say like, I'm going to try and leave this month. I did that for a few months
Mm-hmm.
and she would never shame me. She'd be like, okay, so what do you want to talk about to work on
Right.
that? If you want to leave,
I can help you through it. Right.
what are you waiting to see sort of thing? She was
Mm-hmm.
really good about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I just thought, well, it would get better every once in a while.
Yeah.
And then it would just, but 28 days of bad and then 2 days of good is not enough to
No,
sustain you for the rest of your life. And
it's
I
not.
I felt the same way. I was a shell of a person. I didn't even want to
Mm-hmm.
be alive.
Yep.
So that is not somebody that you need to spend your life with. And it's
No.
okay. I mean, I said after 33 years together and I was like, I'm good. This is
Yeah.
good. You don't know how
Right.
many people I've met
Stay.
30 years, 40 years that are just like, no, life's too short. Like, I
I
don't,
know.
people
I
starting
know.
over in their 70s are like, life's too short. Don't
I
even
know.
care.
It is. And I feel like so many of us just take and take and take.
Hmm.
And I think I was the same way. Because I was so like belittled and I was a shell of a person, I didn't
Yeah.
have the strength to leave him, although I knew I
Right.
felt trapped. And I was like,
Right.
this cannot be what the rest of my life is going to look
Yeah.
like. Like, I feel suffocated. I'm miserable. I come
Hmm.
home crying. Like,
Yeah.
I was so alone in my marriage. I always say I was the
Mhm.
loneliest married person you had ever met because
Yeah.
he never spent time with me. On the weekends, always had to work, always had to do this, had no time for
Mhm.
me. asking to do anything, was like pulling teeth in an argument. And then if
Yeah.
he did go, he'd be miserable. So why even bother going? So I did so much by myself. And I'm like, this isn't a marriage, you
No.
know? And thank God I prayed for me. I got on my hands and knees one day
Yeah.
and I said, God, I can't do this anymore. I said, you handle it, whatever it is. Either you fix and save this marriage and heal this marriage, or you remove it. And like I said, 2 weeks later, he came to me and he's like, I want a divorce, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And within like a month, he moved out. And then I remember the year later, he's like, oh, and by the way, I have a roommate now. I'm like, what? He goes, well, yeah, I have a roommate. It's a girl. I go, oh, so your girlfriend? He's like, well, yeah. I'm like, why are you even telling me? I don't care. Like,
Yes,
I don't care what you're
exactly.
doing. Like, go away. Leave me
But they want
alone.
to see, and I talk to people, I coach people who I've heard people say like, oh, mine still checks in with me. Block their number. The
Block.
reason they're still checking in is so
Control.
that they can have a level of control over you, because if
100%.
you forget, and so I went full no contact. I don't have to parent with him.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God, really.
Thank God for
And
that.
I don't have to see him. We haven't had any big events that
Good.
I've had to see him.
Yeah.
And would I be okay? I don't even know. I really don't know if I would be okay.
Yeah.
Seeing him, maybe. Seeing them together might get them run over.
I agree. That's just like adding salt to wounds. Like, you don't need that.
I mean,
like,
she was a friend, so we all hung
Oh,
out
that's even
together.
worse.
Yeah,
Oh,
so
God, that's
she was a
awful.
coworker, so she was easy access. So
Ugh,
it's the same old story,
it's
and
awful. I'm sorry.
the first time I met her, I should have listened to my gut. This was a red flag, because the first time I met her, I was like,
Yes.
that woman likes my husband a little too much.
A little
But
too flirty.
what did I do with that? I did nothing, because that was
Nothing.
25 years in at that point, and I was
Right.
like, I'm not doing
Me
anything
neither.
with that. I can't say a thing. I can't
Right.
go, excuse me, ma'am. Like I could, what am I going to say? Like
You don't want to bring it up to him because then that's just going to be he'll fight. Can of
yeah, and
worms.
so
You don't need to hear that.
so when we would go out to dinner, because we were all friends, I would say like, you flirt way too much with her.
Yeah.
It's
Oh, you're
just,
crazy. I'm though. I'm sure you
yeah,
said.
and he's like, I've always been a flirty guy. All of my girlfriends have always told me how flirty I am. Another red flag on a silver platter.
Yeah,
And I
100%.
did nothing with it other than I thought, oh, he's admitting his wrongs to me. Okay, but he's literally telling you his red flag, and I did nothing with that. And I'd say, well, I just don't like it. And he's like, I'm sorry, babe. I don't mean anything by it. But
Of
then
course
he'd
they
do it.
do.
But then
They
he'd do
do.
it again. So there's no change in behavior.
No.
They're
Nope.
not going to
Never.
do that. Doesn't mean that it doesn't matter what they say. Then
No.
there's no change in behavior. So
Yeah.
when they got together, it was not a surprise. First thing out of my mouth was, oh, so I'm not crazy. And those are the things you have to live off of. And I try to teach women when I'm coaching them is like, you have to live off even the little wins that you got out of
Yes.
bed, that you're not crying the entire day,
Yes.
that you didn't think about him for an
Yep.
hour. Like, take all the little wins, because they
Yeah.
add up to the big wins eventually.
Yep.
And that's how you get there. We don't get
Yep.
there just by a straight line of perfect healing. No, there's no such
No.
thing.
Healing's not linear. I mean, I
It
just
is
had a
not.
session yesterday. I'm doing some work because
Yeah.
I've done so much healing, but I still feel like I have like a little bit in me
Oh,
still
yeah, me
left that
too.
I need
Yeah.
to purge.
Yeah.
And I was just doing something yesterday. It was like 9D breath work, which is really trying to like rewire your
Yes.
brain and everything and get rid of like limiting beliefs and whatnot. And yesterday, you know what? I was bawling, and I was bawling like the whole
Yeah.
day afterwards because it was still bringing up a lot of anger and resentment I have towards
It
him from
is.
stealing like 15 and a half years of my life. That's how I feel they were stolen.
That's
But
the
I
thing.
can't blame him for that. I knowingly went into it. So like it takes two to tango.
Okay.
But the abuse and all of that is
Yeah.
what came up yesterday that I'm so angry over that the lifestyle I thought I was going to have is
Yes.
gone and just ripped away. And we couldn't have kids. So I felt like very discarded, like, oh, I can't have kids with you. I'll move on. I'll find someone else. Like,
Yeah.
and thankfully I haven't spoken to him in a year. I had to put our
That's
dog
good.
down last June, and I was not about to invite him to that because I was solely responsible for taking care of him.
Yeah.
And I know to this day, he is so angry at me for doing it on my own and telling him
course.
after the fact. But that little thing was my stance of my independence and kind of
Yes.
climbing back and doing something on my own. I did what was best for me, not him, for me for the first time. And that was like a big step. And even my parents were like,
That's
"Oh, you're not going to
amazing.
tell him? You're not going to, like, I had to fight off my parents almost because
Yeah.
their generation is so nice, so
Yes,
kind and
of
inclusive.
course.
But I did it. I was like, it felt great. And then what happened? I think this was also God blocking him from me now. So now I haven't heard from him in a year. But I will say, and this is the question I have for you, is even if I were to get a text from him now, I would literally have PTSD because I don't know what I'm getting from that text, and I would probably start shaking. And I realized for that 22, 23, 24, for 2 years, he kept coming around to see the dog.
Okay.
He'd come back every couple of weeks, every month to see the dog.
Because he's probably checking to see if she has a boyfriend. Let's
Yes,
see if things look
100%.
different.
100%.
And I try to tell people, like, even if they come in, I have a friend going through divorce right now. And I said, well, as soon as you guys are done and you're keeping the house, you change the locks. And she's like, why? I go, because it's your house.
That's what I did.
He's gonna walk in the door and he's gonna be like, oh, you changed all this. And while it maybe won't bother you, it's meant to bother you. It's meant to annoy you. It's meant to it's just another way, because you can't live with somebody who calls you dummy all the time or whatever it is. You can't live with somebody like that. So, and you understanding that you'll be dysregulated if you get a text. Like, I think I would be the same way. Now, he's not blocked in my phone because we have kids together, but yeah, I think I would be the same way if I got a text. I'd be like, why? Why is it why? Why are you texting me?
Why? What's going on here? But I think that's
is
part of
happening?
the abuse and the trauma from it, that you almost get like PTSD from it.
Yeah,
Like,
your body starts to remember,
yes,
because
it
a
does.
text wasn't always like, "Hi, sweetie, how's your day?" Sometimes it was like, "Why'd you do this?" or "Where are you?
Where are you? When are you going to be home? Where's my dinner? Why are you taking so long?
When are you going to be home?" I could never, even if he was at work and I was doing something, I would always be like, I got to get home before he does, because,
Same.
And it's like, listen,
So
they don't,
stupid.
it's so stupid. Now thinking about it, it's so stupid, but
It is.
they train you and dysregulate you so much that you
Yes.
gaslight yourself. Like we talked about,
Yes.
you can't even trust yourself. And I remember I would be sitting at a coffee shop with a girlfriend. We'd just be chatting and they'd ask me a question about something, maybe in my opinion, say on something political. And I wouldn't even say anything because I'd be like, what if he finds out what I said?
Wow.
I'm in a different part of the city and he doesn't, for all I know, he doesn't check my phone. So it's like, that's weird. Why am I thinking that? But when you're gaslit and manipulated, their voice becomes your conscience, and so it's so hard, and it's hard to break. And that's why.
Thanks for listening to Second Act Sessions. Be sure to check out part 2 in the next episode, where we dive even